Hi everyone, welcome to the Timberkids vlog. I'm Pastor Donnie and this is my good friend Chris Bruno from Restoration Project, and today we're going to tackle the topic of fatherhood. So Chris, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So on the topic of fatherhood, why is the topic of fatherhood so important to you? And why do you think it's so important for our culture today?
Well, for me personally, it's important because I am a father. And I think it's important for our culture because as we look at society at large, most of the societal ills that we're facing, whether it's poverty, teenage pregnancy, drugs, alcohol use, any of those kinds of things all tie back to an absent father. So I think it's really important for us as dads to really take a look at how important we are in the family and how important we are for our kids.
So you, in your counseling and in your writings, you really emphasize the importance of story and how men should get in touch with their story. Why is that such a big deal to you and fathers?
Well, one of my favorite authors, he says, stories leak. Another author says that what is untransformed in us, we often transmit to the next generation. So if we don't take a look at what's going on in our own lives and how we were fathered, but then also how God made us, who he made us to be, and what kind of story we're meant to tell in the world, we're not going to really be able to father our kids well. We have to address our own hearts before we address theirs. And I think as we step into this role as fathers, it's important to recognize that what was written into our lives by our fathers, we are actually writing into the lives of our kids. And I want to make sure that as a dad myself, that I'm doing the best that I can in that authoring process.
So that writing into the lives of our kids, that's both explicitly and implicitly,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Right?
Most of it is implicit, right? Most of it, we don't even realize that we're writing. It's how we are rather than what we say. It's how we engage rather than the kinds of things of instruction or what we're telling our kids or even the discipline. It's more the ethos, it's more the experience of us as fathers that is the writing process. And that's really important. That implicit side is huge.
So for a man to get in touch with his own story, how does he go about doing that? Is that journaling or counseling, or both? What is it?
Yeah, it's both and. I think the most important thing that dads can have is other men in their lives. Other men who are willing to actually read who they are and give the man the feedback that this is what I see in your life. This is what I see you struggling with. This is what I see your glory is. And this is what I see who you are in the world. That's really important to have other men speaking into our lives. But then also that journaling, that reflection, that prayer, and certainly counseling can help. I think especially amongst men, counseling has this like stigma that you go if you're weak. I think you go to counseling if you're strong. Strong in the sense of like, I want more. I have hope for more. I know that where I'm at is not where I should be, and so I'm going to go and take those brave steps to actually work on myself on behalf of my wife, on behalf of my kids, on behalf of my church and culture.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say to those fathers who maybe have experienced or they are experiencing broken relationships with their kids, or maybe they don't have great relationships with their adult kids?
Yeah.
What would you say to those dads?
Well, to the first, I would say it's never too late. And to the second, I would say it's never too late, right? Okay. I have a friend who is 20 years older than me, and his dad passed away a couple years ago. And he was there in the hospital by his bedside and still just longing to hear from his dad those words of affirmation, approval, and blessing, just longing to hear those words from his dad. And he's in his late 60s. So I think it's never too late for us dads to take the step towards our kids. And even if it is, if they're older or if there is a strained relationship, the more that a dad can turn his heart towards his son or his daughter, the more the son or daughter will turn back to the father. That's actually the last verse in the Old Testament, Malachi 4:6, that when the father turns his heart toward the children turn their heart back to the father. It really begins with us.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Most men would never admit this,
Yeah.
but in general, I think that most men feel inadequate as men. What would you say to that?
Absolutely, that's how I feel all the time, is that I am inadequate for this task. So if you're one of those guys, join the crowd. But I also think, like, inadequate for what? Not enough for what? Somehow God has chosen to bring you into the life of your child and your child into your life. So if that's his purpose, if that's what he's doing, is that not enough? Is that not the adequacy that you need? Just to know that he did that on purpose. And there's something about you that is designed specifically for that child, and something about that child that specifically needs you to step in. So that's where I'm like, yeah, we're all inadequate, and we have the adequacy that we need in Christ.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. How would you, what would you say is the difference in fathering sons versus fathering daughters?
Yeah, there is a big difference.
'Cause you have both.
Yeah, I have both. There's some similarities, but there's some difference. So I'll start with the similarities. I think that when it comes to fathering at all, it is the father's presence that is required, right? To be present, and I both mean physically present and emotionally present in that, to be just show up for your kids, but then also have some level of thoughtful intentionality. Not just some attention where we're giving them our eyes, but some intention where we're actually thinking through, what are we doing in the life of our children? What are we doing on their behalf? What plans do we have? And that's necessary for both sons and daughters. Now, the thing is that as fathers, as men, we can lead our sons into manhood, but we cannot lead our daughters into womanhood. And so it's a huge difference in how we're going to take a real primary role with regard to our sons in leading them into that manhood. But we need to platform and posture ourselves in a very different way with our daughters and with our wives or the mothers of our daughters. We need to make sure that the mother is the one to lead the daughter into womanhood. And we take really a second role in that. And that's huge. It's a big difference. But both sons and daughters need our presence pretty significantly.
Now, all of this, obviously, this is kind of your life work.
Yeah.
Is both through your counseling practice as well as you're a very gifted writer, speaker. And another aspect of this is you've created Restoration Project, which are various expeditions with fathers and their children. Explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Restoration Project, one of the primary pieces that we work on is this fatherhood part. Another part is brotherhood. But within the fatherhood, we do a lot of writing, a lot of speaking around fatherhood, but then also provide dads with the opportunity to come alongside of us and allow us to help platform you as a dad. So during the summer, we've got here in Colorado, we have 4 what we call expeditions. One is a weekend with some younger boys and younger daughters. And then another is a 5-day-long expedition out into the backcountry where we go backpacking or canoeing. It's just a time that we have very intentionally crafted. We actually call it architected, specifically for dads and their children to engage in a different way. It's not just a camping trip. Those are good. But this is a very intentional weekend to platform you as a dad and to draw your daughter or your son closer to you. They're a blast. I absolutely love them.
Yes, and I can attest to it. I
you
took
came.
my son Owen a couple of years ago, and I'm taking my youngest son Wyatt this coming summer. Those weekends culminate with this thing you call a blessing.
Yeah.
Tell us about blessing.
Oh, I could talk for a long time on blessing. Basically, blessing is the opportunity for us as dads to speak life words, kind of a life covering over our kids. Every one of us want to hear those kinds of words from our dad, right?
Oh, yes.
I know that I do, and I know that our kids do. And so, but how often do we have time set aside and kind of a build-up opportunity for them to hear from us very intentionally? So at the end of every one of these expeditions, whether they're the long ones or the short ones, we create the space for each dad to really kneel down before the child and speak directly to them according to who God has made them, according to their glory, and really some desires and visions that we have for them in life. There's not a dry eye in the crowd when that happens, whether it's the men or the kids. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is a powerful moment. Well, Chris, thank you for joining us today. I can attest that I've become a better father because of your ministry, so thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
And I know that you'll become a better father also. Please pay attention to the links that we'll include below. As always, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Seriously? It's only $24 million.
Well, I said, so should we buy it? She said, read the article.
Awesome.